Okay, hi everybody. Thank you all for coming. A special thanks to Senators Murray, Reid, Murphy for joining us. This morning, Leader McConnell and I welcomed President Zelensky to the Senate, his third visit to the Capitol, in a meeting like no other. He was extremely persuasive. This is a moment we must meet. If Ukraine falls, it will be a historic, colossal tragedy. Historians will look back on this, not 2 weeks from now, but years from now, and say this was one of the turning points where Western civilization took a dramatic turn downward, where the U.S. abandoned its ally. It's just awful. And how our Republican friends who care so much about Ukraine are not being serious about this right now is appalling to me. My Republican colleagues know very well that Ukraine's fate is inexorably linked to our national security. So if you had to pick words, the word for Republicans is they have to be serious. Serious means negotiating in good faith. We're willing to meet them in the middle. They haven't moved away from H.R. 2. Serious means not saying we're going to go home when there's an emergency. They say it's an emergency at both the border and in Ukraine. You don't go home for 3 weeks. You don't say we can put it off 3 weeks if it's an emergency. And so hopefully our words are we're still trying. We are trying very, very hard to get this done. At 3 o'clock, there will be a meeting with Senator Langford, Senator Sinema, and Murphy, who's here today and can talk about it, with people from the White House, Secretary Mayorkas, and top people from my office and Senator McConnell's office. And we are still trying to get something done at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Last night, I spoke with Speaker Johnson. As I said, I spoke with Speaker Johnson and urged him to keep the House in session a little longer to give the supplemental a chance to come together. I told him this because over the past 24 hours, I've been alarmed to see some of the same Republicans who demand action at the border because it's an emergency say that we should leave and come back 3 weeks from now, suggesting there's no urgency to act before Christmas, contradicting their own words. After months of saying the border's a crisis, that we must get something done yesterday, too many Republicans, many in the House and now a good number in the Senate, seem to prefer to go home than pass a bill. If Republicans are serious about getting something done on the border, then why are so many of them in a hurry to leave for the winter break? Has borders simply been an excuse to kill funding for Ukraine? Democrats are asking themselves that question. Right now, as all this happens, Russian state TV is running segments bragging about how wonderful it is that Republicans are abandoning Ukraine. We are still committed to finding realistic bipartisan agreements on the southern border, and I hope my Republican colleagues take to heart President Zelensky's warnings. The only people happy right now about the gridlock in Congress are Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, who unfortunately somehow are allies. Putin is delighting in the fact that Donald Trump's border policies are sabotaging military aid to Ukraine. I urge my Republican colleagues to show they're serious about getting a supplemental package done. Democrats are still trying. We'll continue to work with Republicans in the coming days in good faith. Now, as we work on the supplemental, we have a lot of other things to do. Later today, the Senate will move forward on the NDAA under Senator Reid's leadership, and he'll talk about it. The Senate has worked tirelessly to get it over the finish line, and I applaud my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for doing it, working together to get this done. And the bill contains many of the policies that we in the Senate passed this summer. As you know, cloture passed 82 to 15. So, as I said repeatedly, we begin the month of December with 3 major goals here in the Senate before the end of the year. First, we had to end the unprecedented and months-long blockade of hundreds of military nominees. We've done that. Second, we need to pass the NDAA, as we have for decades on a bipartisan basis. We're on track to do that. And finally, most difficult of all, we must reach an agreement on national security supplemental. We hope our Republican colleagues are serious about getting something done there, too. We're still ready to work. Senator Murray.
Well, let's cut to the chase here. We can pass a national security supplemental, and we can do it quickly. But senators need to decide if they are serious about delivering on aid to Ukraine and other critical national security priorities, or if they want to go home for the holidays and abandon our allies and deliver a massive gift to Putin. Democrats remain serious, and we are ready to negotiate around bipartisan border policy. But we will not entertain a partisan wish list of permanent far-right overhauls to immigration policy. Now is the time to work together. It sends a dangerous message when one half of the Senate is focused on pitting allies in crises against each other as political bargaining chips. We've talked about this at length. We simply cannot afford further delays that tell our adversaries they can just wait us out. We cannot afford half steps that tell our allies we will only stand by some of them, some of the time. So I hope Senate Republicans will choose to work with us here. And now, for those not keeping count, we are 38 days from the first government funding deadline that the Speaker set. I don't think the American people want to see food safety inspectors or air traffic controllers furloughed. But if we want to make progress on our full-year funding bills, that we need Speaker Johnson to get back to the full top-line spending deal that House Republicans negotiated themselves. Consider what kind of precedent it sets if now, months after a spending agreement was negotiated and passed into law, 3 months into this current fiscal year, House Republicans want to pull the rug out from the rest of us and go back on their word and the deal that they cut. Remember, House Republicans negotiated that very directly with the White House in the first place, not Democrats and not Senate Republicans. A shutdown is not an acceptable outcome. A date change, full-year CR, as the Speaker has proposed, is not an acceptable outcome. We need to pass full-year spending bills. That's it. So I hope the Speaker hears me loud and clear. Get back to the full deal that you cut, that you voted for, and let's do our jobs. Thank you.
Senator Reid.
This is a dangerous moment in the world. Russia is digging in for another winter in Ukraine, and the Middle East is becoming even more volatile with the conflict between Israel and Hamas. China, Russia, and Iran are watching how America reacts. And right now, Congress has, I would say, the opportunity, but actually it's the responsibility to step up and show the world that we stand with our allies and partners. The National Defense Authorization Act and the Emergency Supplemental are critical to that effort. I am encouraged by the progress that we've made in the last week to complete the NDAA. I'm glad that we will soon vote on the bill. I want to thank my colleagues on the Armed Services Committee, as well as Leader Schumer and colleagues in the House. We have an NDAA that makes our country safer and stronger. Let me emphasize, this is a bipartisan defense bill that addresses the long-term challenges posed by China, Russia, and other potential adversaries. It provides a historic pay raise for our military members and defense civilians. And this NDA is laser-focused on investing in the people, platforms, infrastructure, and technologies that will define the future. The defense bill makes important progress toward achieving our shared bipartisan goals, and I urge my colleagues to vote for it. And even as we advance the NDAA, we must also prioritize the supplemental appropriations bill. I appreciated the opportunity this morning to meet with President Zelensky along with my colleagues, and he reminded us of the urgent need to continue helping Ukraine defend itself against Putin's brutal illegal invasion. This is not just a wise investment. A simple sort of rule I follow: I'd rather send resources to an ally than send our young men and women to battles. And if we do not support the Ukrainians, the danger that we will be drawn into this conflict is very serious. We must act now before it's too late, and the price of inaction results in far, far steeper course down the road. Senator Murphy, please.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. President Zelensky's visit today underscored the stakes we are dealing with. We are making a decision about the future of the free world, plain and simple. If we don't stand by Ukraine, we give a green light for Vladimir Putin to march into Ukraine and perhaps through into Europe. We give a green light to President Xi to expedite his plans for the forceful takeover of Taiwan. The entirety of the post-World War II order falls apart. We remain seriously and deeply engaged in talks with Republicans about their demand that border policy be attached to the Israel and Ukraine funding bill. I wish we weren't at this point. I wish Republicans thought that funding for Ukraine was as important as they have said it is. I wish that they were not demanding that we settle one of the most difficult and vexing domestic political issues in order to save Ukraine and Europe. But we remain at the table. We have put serious proposals on the table that respond to Republican concerns. And now is the time for Republicans to get in closing mode. We don't have time on our side. We are willing to meet Republicans in the middle. They have to be willing to be there as well. And so I'm glad that at today's meeting we will have, for the first time, representatives from Senator McConnell's office involved in these talks, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to make progress so that before Christmas we can get this bill passed through the Senate and the House of Representatives and to the President's desk.
Okay.
Leader Schumer.
Go ahead.
Do you want the President involved in these talks?
Look, the White House has been involved. There have been 3 or 4 discussions between the White House and people, high-up people in the White House, Secretary Mayorkas and Senator Lankford, and several times. And today there'll be, again, people at the White House, from the White House, high-level people, the Secretary, along with my representative. I'm glad Leader McConnell, I asked him to send representatives, his representative, and our 3 senators who have been doing the negotiations. Look, we're going to keep trying. We hope we can come to an agreement. We're not close there yet, mainly because the Republicans on Friday took a giant step back, put in H.R. 2, and they haven't moved enough off that yet. They know that can't pass either the Senate or the House. Yes, Manu.
Given what's happening at the border, why not agree to more restrictive asylum policies dealing with the President's parole authority in order to unlock aid to Ukraine?
The bottom line is very simple. We are willing to meet in the middle. We have moved far more away from the President's original bill than they have moved off H.R. 2, and we want to come to a deal to meet people in the middle. Everyone knows that H.R. 2 can't pass. It's a total abdication of everything. It's Trump's policies. The American people don't like Trump's policies. Yes. Giving what? Look, I called Speaker Johnson last night and urged him to stay. I spoke to Leader McConnell right after the Zelensky meeting and urged him to stay. If it's an emergency, as so many Republicans have said on the border and many have said about Ukraine, you don't go home for 3 weeks. It'll be much harder to do in January, everyone admits that, than it is today.
Leader Schumer.
Yes.
If the House does not stay in session, if they leave on Thursday as they're expecting to, is Ukraine aid pretty much punted to 2024 at that point?
Look, as I said, we're going to look for the best way forward to get this done, and we are going to keep trying.
Leader
Yes.
Schumer, the House tomorrow is expected to approve this resolution formalizing an impeachment inquiry. If they in fact send an impeachment, articles of impeachment to the Senate, will you just dismiss it? How will you entertain that in the Senate?
The bottom line is what the Republicans are doing in the House is just absurd. And I think the American people will see it as ridiculous and a big negative for the Republican Party.
Parliamentarily, you have to deal with
Yes,
that
go
somehow.
ahead.
Mr. Leader, do you regret the fact that the White House tied the security package
You know,
to the
please,
package? Do you wish you were just
let's get real here. The Republicans have been tying border to Ukraine for a long time, no matter what the White House did. The White House just put together a bill, but they're not the ones. It's not the White House that's demanding border as part of Ukraine. It's the Republicans, plain and simple. So it's an absurd argument, well, the White House started it. We are willing to give them an amendment on border, and we are willing to do Ukraine without border. They haven't taken us up on either offer. Thank you, everybody.